I call the March 20th meeting of the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement to order. A quorum is present. The first item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from March 16th, 2023. Is there a motion to move those minutes?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Representative Nelson moves approval of the March 16th, 2023 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The motion prevails and the minutes from March 16th are adopted. I will now hand the gavel over to Representative Nelson as Vice Chair. Frentz and myself are going to be presenting the next bill. You go first because I'm going to go. Yes. You so you do go first. Do you want it? No, I'm good with it. Yeah, just, yeah.
Madam Chair, when you're ready, or Vice Chair Frentz, when you're ready, you can make the motion.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair and members of the public here. Very proud to present Senate File 1959 along with the chair relating to post-traumatic stress disorder, relating to duty disability, relating to employers, and relating to our desire to provide treatment to men and women in public safety when they suffer from PTSD, to protect the integrity of the funding plan and status, and to try to show employers some support out of state fund. And with that, and out of deference to the incredible amount of work that she's done, I'm gonna allow Chair Her to present the rest. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Madam Chair.
Chair Her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Frentz, for that opening. I did just want to start. We have a lot of people here today, so I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. But what I want to do is just set the stage for the conversation today. So this is a bill that has been in the works for over 3 years, that the stakeholders were meeting for a year and a half before we even started drafting legislation for this. It has been through 16 revisions. The working group that negotiated the terms of this bill included members from 15 entities representing cities, chiefs, labor, pension, law enforcement, and firefighter. Just to name a few, we had the Association of Minnesota Counties, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, Law Enforcement Labor Services, the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, the Minnesota Inter-County Association, the Police and Peace Officers Association, the Professional Firefighters Association, the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, and that list goes on, and it's representative of all the different stakeholders who care about this particular issue. Not one entity got everything that they wanted. Everyone made concessions that they might not have preferred not to, but ultimately everyone agreed that this duty disability process needed to be addressed. I also want to be very clear that I've received a lot of emails of people being really upset at me for this particular bill, and I just want to say out loud that there is not one provision in this bill that is mine. There is not one idea in this bill that was mine, and that my job was to usher in this process for all of the stakeholders who felt that we needed to make sure that our officers who needed support in getting their mental injuries addressed, that they got those supports. And at the intersection of all of this is not only just our officers who are on duty disability, who we must take care of, but we were also balancing the fact that we have active police officers who will have to pay for the increase in cost should we not be able to get a deal across the finish line. And that also cities, small cities, who are dealing with the fact that their cities are raising levies, double digits, in order to cover the cost of a duty disability. That there are a lot of stakeholders at the table here who are interested and need to have this particular bill done. And so with that, I just wanted to make sure that people understood where this bill came from, why this bill needed to be done, and also who has had a voice at the table for this bill. I will not go over the specifics of the bill because we do have testifiers here today from PERA who will do that. But I do want to note that this bill has been through, this is the 4th stop in the House. It has been through public safety, it has been through judiciary and also state gov, and out of judiciary and state gov, it passed unanimously. It passed unanimously not because anybody has any political thoughts around this bill, but it's because we know that we need to take care of our officers. We know that we need to make sure that they get at least 24 weeks of treatment. We know that that our officers need to be able to come back to a job that they choose because they love the job, and that there are a lot of things at play here. And so I just wanted to make sure that we were grounded in that as we move forward, that it was never the intention to disproportionately impact any individual group, but this is a compromise between a lot of individuals. So with that said, I will go ahead and turn this over to testifiers so that they can begin to share their testimony.
And Chair Her, do you want to do your amendment, your 2A amendment first to put it in the order, or do you want to go to testifiers?
I thought we would do all amendments at the end, but I will absolutely take the A2 to put it in the order that it needs to be.
That's fine, we'll go to the testifiers then.
Oh, that's okay. We can go to, I'm looking for my staff to tell me that, am I supposed to take the A2 right now? Let's go ahead and do the A2 to put the bill in the order that we,
The A2 amendment, I move the A2 amendment. You want to briefly explain, maybe Mr. Anderson needs to come up, briefly explain what the A2 does?
do you want me to explain it?
Or do you want Mr.
I'm
Anderson?
sorry, I was looking at Senator Francis'
Do
note
you want
to me.
Mr. Anderson to come up and explain, or do you want to explain the A2 amendment?
The A2 amendment is a technical amendment that the group worked on very recently. I just want everyone to know that we continue to work on this bill, and we will continue to work on this bill. And this A2 is to correct some of the adjustments that were being made. We made adjustments to the offset one, which actually makes the plan more favorable to our officers who have actually put in a lot of time in service. And then also a couple of other technical changes for PERA to be able to administer this plan. But if Mr. Anderson is here, there's additional, that he wants to ensure that people know about what is in the amendment. Mr. Anderson?
I don't see, oh, and he's going to be the first testifier, so Mr. Anderson, why don't you come forward? And that way, save us some time. And as he's coming forward, audience and members, in your packet, there's a lot of written testimony that was sent in. And so, we have a long list of testifiers, so as we get into the testifiers, if you can keep your comments to a minute and a half so we can get through everybody. We need to get through this today. We've allotted a certain amount of time for this, and so hopefully we can get through this and get it out of here today. Mr. Anderson, if you want to explain the A2 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll just focus on the proposed change to offset number one. Aware that offset number one is something that impacted quite a few people, so I'd like to kind of run through this fairly carefully. The purpose of that offset is that currently in a pension plan, active members contribute over their working lifetime to receive a benefit at retirement. Active members have a contribution that they make, 11.8% of their pay. This is in effect an offset that active members have against their salary. Disability recipients have a disability benefit, and if they have reemployment earnings, the proposal is that an offset would apply only if they have reemployment earnings, and that offset would be comparable to what a contribution is that's made by an active member. So the way it is proposed is different than what is in the bill currently. So the changes would reflect that if a member has made past contributions, that's reflected in the offset amount. The second change is that the period in which they did not have contributions, that amount, the offset would be spread over the remaining period from the time of disability to retirement. And there's a third adjustment that if reemployment earnings is low, the offset would be no more than 50% of reemployment earnings. So for example, if a disability recipient starts work at age 25 and goes on disability retirement at age 30, they would have put in 5 years of service, 5 years of contributions. Their benefit is a 20-year of service benefit. That's the minimum benefit. So the benefit is 20 years of service or a 60% of average salary benefit. So they're receiving a benefit that reflects 20 years of service, but they had contributed for 5 years. So the offset number one proposal is that the 15 years of contributions that they did not make to earn that 20-year benefit would be something that they would contribute, and we would seek to have those contributions come back to the fund in the form of an offset spread from the time of their disability to retirement. So for someone who goes on disability at 30, that's spread over 25 years. So the offset is seeking to equate to contributions 15 years of contributions spread over a 25-year period. So it's less than what is initially proposed. What's really important, I think, with this offset, number one, is that if a member has contributed for 20 years or more, there is no offset, number one. They will have contributed 20 years for a 20-year benefit. The longer someone had contributed, the smaller offset number one will be. Another key point is that if a member has no reemployment earnings, then there's no offset, number one. And then lastly, if reemployment earnings is a smaller amount, we'd be limiting that to no more than 50% of earnings. So this is a pretty significant change from the amendment, or how offset number one works in the original bill. This amendment would be a pretty significant change. It would be a lesser amount for everyone. And again, the higher the amount of service, the lesser the amount would be. And anyone who has over 20 years of contributions, anyone who had over 20 years of service would not have offset number one apply.
So, questions, members? If not, all in favor of the A2 amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails, the A2 amendment. We have two other amendments in the packet here, a 5A and a 6A. Representative Hurd, do you want to do those now or after testimony?
After testimony,
Okay,
Mr. Chair.
thank you. First person on my list for testimony is Mr. Anderson. If you want to, you went through the amendment, if you want to kind of explain the bill, and so then we can get to the rest of the testifiers. And Amy Strange is going to be up here with you, so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, and good morning, committee members. I'm Doug Anderson, Executive Director, Public Employees Retirement Association. Amy Strange will go through the entire components of the bill. I have a few comments that I'll make first. I'm going to focus my testimony on two issues, the reapplication process, and I'm going to revisit that offset number one because I just do think it's really important and a really significant change from what's in the current bill. PERA's board does support House File 1234 and Senate File 1959 because the bill provides early treatment for our members struggling with mental health issues. It makes PERA's current processes clearer to our members, and it makes changes to benefits to be more fair between active members, members on disability that can have reemployment earnings, and members on disability that do not have reemployment earnings. So I'll focus on two areas. First, the annual reapplication process. The annual reapplication process is not changing. Over the past week, there's information that has circulated that has heightened concern and stress for some of our members. I've spoken with many of these members, and they've expressed concern about losing benefits entirely, paying high costs to reapply, or revisiting a process that they experienced at a difficult time in their lives. I want to assure that the reapplication process is very different from the initial application process. It only requires that a previously approved member submit one supporting medical report. That's it. There's no fee, there's no need for an attorney, and the process usually takes only a week for a response. Last year, we had over 1,000 reapplications, and we did not deny a single police and fire plan or correctional plan member. The bill only codifies in statute what we are doing in current practice. We are not changing what is required to be submitted. We are not changing the timing of when it is required to be submitted, and we are not trying to achieve a different result with our process. Second, I want to come back to the offset, because we have heard concern from members that the offset as described in the original bill would remove the incentive to work. So we greatly appreciate the amendment related to offset one and believe it more fairly requires disability recipients that can work to help support the health of the fund in which they benefit. Offset number one is comparable to active member contributions. Active members contribute during their working lifetime to fund benefits after retirement. These are called contributions for active members, but they could just as well be referred to as an offset for an active member. It's an offset against their salary. Disability recipients that have reemployment earnings currently have no similar offset. Offset number one is amended, considers how much a member contributed before disability, and if that doesn't equal 20 years of contributions, the difference is made up over the period of time from disability to age 55. Again, if a member has already contributed 20 years by the time of their disability, then offset number 1 would not apply. And offset number 1 does not apply if the member has no reemployment earnings. Final comment is just about the health of the fund. The current funding ratio of the plan, the comparison of assets to liability, it's okay. Retirees do not need to be concerned about receiving benefits, but the funding ratio is declining. It's getting worse. And the amount of disability retirees in recent years has had a really significant impact. And our estimates are that if this doesn't change, it'll increase the cost of the plan by about $40 million a year. That's about 4% of payroll. This plan has a longstanding tradition that's split 40% between employees, 60% employers. So if this trend doesn't reverse, active members will have a 1.6% contribution increase. There's a question about, why not grandfather this group in? I think it's important, this fund has always been mindful of the next generation, what the actives have, and if the burden's put entirely on the actives, it's going to result in larger contribution increases. So our proposal, and with offset number 1, it's to include all members who can work and those that haven't contributed for their benefit to help the fund by contributing for their fair share. And that concludes my comments, and if Ms. Stringy.
Ms. Stringy, if you want to identify yourself and proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Amy Stringy, Policy Coordinator for the Public Employee Retirement Association. The bill before the Commission, House File 1234, Senate File 1959, as amended, establishes a treatment program for police and fire members with a psychological condition that was the result of the performance of duties related to their occupation, which is then administered by PERA through a special fund. PERA is responsible to administer the program as follows: approve applications for psychological treatment, confirm whether treatment requirements have been satisfied after 24 weeks, and approve additional treatment if applicable. Based upon the member's medical professional report, determine if the member is eligible to return to work or another position with the same employer, or is now eligible to apply for disability benefits. The bill also contains provisions that modify eligibility requirements and the occupational standard for duty disability benefits based on a psychological condition, adjust the vesting schedule, codify the existing reapplication process, increase duty, total, and permanent disability benefits, modify the current offset against disability benefits for reemployment earnings, and also eliminate the workers' compensation offsets against disability benefits. The bill alters the vesting schedule to a 10-year graded vesting, which means that a member will now be 50% vested at 5 years and 100% vested at 10 years. PERA must ensure that we are paying the appropriate benefits as dictated by statute. PERA's current statute requires adequate proof by the member that the member remains disabled. Otherwise, PERA cannot continue to pay disability benefits. Adequate proof is defined in statute as a written expert report by a licensed physician, an APRN, or a licensed chiropractor, or with respect to a mental impairment, a licensed psychologist. The bill codifies PERA's current administrative practice for reapplications into statute. It's not a new requirement. The current process is that members reapply by submitting adequate proof that they remain disabled once a year for the first 5 years and every 3 years after that. I want to stress that this reapplication process is not the initial application. A member will continue to submit the one medical written report for the reapplication process. The language in the bill will not change the member's experience for the reapplication process. In the bill, a waiver is added to statute so that it's clear that PERA may grant a waiver if our medical advisor states in writing that no improvement can be expected in the person's disabling condition. Lastly, the language continues that requirement a member be required to prove that they remain disabled if they are denied and file an appeal. I want to note, denials and appeals are very rare. This change will not lead to PERA denying more members in the reapplication process. I want to reiterate that these changes are not being sought to challenge members in the reapplication process. These changes are brought to provide clarity for members regarding PERA's reapplication process, and also clarity for staff to administer the reapplication process fairly and equitably. House File 123 modifies duty disability eligibility with a psychological condition in 2 ways. First, a requirement is established for police and fire members who apply for a duty disability benefit based on a psychological condition. To be eligible, the member must satisfy the new treatment requirements, which include the 24 weeks of treatment. Secondly, the occupational standard is modified for police and fire members applying for a duty disability based on a psychological condition. The current standard is modified to account for another position with the same employer that provides equal or greater salary and benefits. The bill increases duty, total, and permanent disability benefits to 99% of the member's average salary. This change recognizes that in order to qualify for a duty, total, and permanent disability benefit, members are unable to have any substantial gainful activity. And as a result of that, the current benefit is not adequate. The bill modifies the current disability offsets for members receiving a disability benefit who have reemployment earnings. As amended, the first offset is an amount equal to a member's average salary at disability times the current active member's contribution rate of 11.8%. This would apply annually until retirement on reemployment earnings, no matter what the amount is. The amendment modified the offset by first recognizing and reducing the offset to reflect members' past years of service. Secondly, it spreads the offset amount over a member's period of time between disability and normal retirement. And lastly, it caps the amount of the offset for instances when reemployment earnings is relatively low. The second offset is a reduction of $1 for each dollar that the disability plus reemployment earnings exceeds 100% of pay for an active member in a comparable position. In addition, the bill eliminates the current workers' compensation offset that occurs for a disability benefit. In general, the reapplication process and offsets end at normal retirement age for members receiving a disability benefit. With that, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, sorry, I conclude my testimony and be happy to answer questions.
Any questions right now? Representative Howe,
Thank
or
you.
Senator Howe, excuse me. I knew you went back there. I knew you went,
Whatever.
yes.
It's all good. Mr. Anderson, will these offsets prevent future contribution increases for members? Or it'll prevent that from happening in the short term, should I say?
Mr. Anderson?
Mr. Chair, Senator Howe, I can't say it would prevent future contribution increases, but it would help lessen future contribution increases that would be on the active members.
Or Senator Howe? Any other questions? If not, I'll go to start with the testifiers. And Mr. Anderson, Mr. Stringy, if you want, I know you'll be hanging around. If we want to get to questions afterwards, you may get called back up. The first person I have on my list is Jenny Max. And to make things go easier, the next person is John Swenson. So if you can get ready to come up. And again, try and limit your testimony to 1.5 minutes, so we can get through all the testifiers. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Jenny Max, and I am the city administrator for the city of Nisswa, as well as first vice president of the League of Minnesota Cities. I'd like to thank the commission for the opportunity to provide testimony in support of public safety-related duty disability reform. I'd also like to express my appreciation to all of the stakeholder groups for working in good faith throughout the process. I'm confident that Nisswa's story isn't unique regarding the challenges related to duty disability. A longtime officer of the city of Nisswa filed for duty disability benefits, and the city was informed that those benefits were approved by PERA. The initial financial impact for this one duty disability claim was over $350,000 that would have spanned over 24 years, resulting in a cumulative 14% levy increase, which is a significant and unanticipated budget impact for a small city, and without a clear process, it was very difficult to navigate through. Along with the financial impact is the human impact. The city believes that healthy employees are key to providing quality services to Nisswa's residents, businesses, and visitors. In April 2022, the city adopted a new mental health policy for the Nisswa Police Department. This policy provides mental health resources to our police officers, paid for by the city and at no cost to the employee. This was in an effort to help support our law enforcement staff and allow them a long and fruitful career in public service. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you, and that was under 1.5 minutes, so thank you for that. John Swenson, and the next person I have is Michelle Hess. Michelle Ness. And she's gonna be on Zoom. Welcome to the committee again. State your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Swenson. And Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House File 1234 and Senate File 1959 on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. I would like to thank Representative Howe and Senator Frentz for their work on this vitally important legislation. I have had the honor and privilege of serving as a police officer for 30 years in the communities of Minneapolis, White Bear Lake, and Lino Lakes. And I have seen the toll this profession can have on police officers and firefighters. I know that this legislation will help our police officers and firefighters stay healthy and continue to serve in our honorable profession. We have worked very hard with all of the stakeholders over the last 2 years to address mental health injuries of our first responders. Through our work, we learned from mental health experts that mental health injuries are highly treatable, particularly post-traumatic stress disorder. We provide treatment to our first responders who have sustained physical injuries. We have to provide treatment to our first responders that sustain mental health injuries. This legislation will do that. The key to keeping all of our staff healthy is a focus on prevention, which must be a top priority for agencies and city leadership as well as employees. This legislation also addresses prevention by ensuring that all public safety entities have training and programming focused on prevention for police officers and firefighters. We ask the members of this commission to support this important legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. I've been informed that Michelle Ness is going to be on Zoom, and she's not on yet. The next person I have on my list is Adam Hamburg. Michelle's up here. Oh, she's in person. Oh, Michelle's in person, okay. I've got you listed as being on Zoom. The next person I'm listed as Adam Hamburger. Is he here? Right. Okay, I've got him listed as on Zoom also. Michelle, thank you for your time. And Ms. Ness, and if you want to give your name and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you for your time. My name is Michelle Ness. In 2007, I started my career as a deputy for the Olmsted County Sheriff's Office after a close friend was killed by a drunk driver. In 2018, I was assaulted by an alcohol and drug impaired driver who did not want to be arrested. I sustained serious injuries to my shoulder, and just by surgery and hours of physical therapy every day, I was forced to retire and give up my job in March of 2020. Excuse me. My family's life was irrevocably changed. A lot of uncertainty and fear that we would lose our house and everything that we'd worked for. I made good money, especially with the overtime and the shift differential pay, that was now gone. My future financial stability was also at risk, and I knew I needed to do something about it. So to offset the loss, I began working as a civilian position in my sheriff's office, making significantly less wages. And the advice of a financial advisor, I used my disability income to start putting money into my retirement accounts because I knew I can't rely on Social Security because of the windfall provision. The new legislation stands to devastate my family and my future because of these offsets. It's going to be capping my ability to earn money, and it's basically based off of a base wage. And that base wage does not include overtime and shift differential, the things that I had worked to prior to my assault. This does remove an incentive to work harder because the more pay I get, the less money I'm going to earn because of the reduction of the tax-free income. So regardless, I can't get a second job, I can't work harder because this pay does go away. Last few days, I've really been struggling, doing the calculations and panicking again about my future, about how it was. If this were to pass, I would lose about 70% of my monthly benefits. I'm gonna lose thousands of dollars every month and hundreds of thousands of dollars between now and my retirement. And I have no way to make this up. I have 2 children in college. I don't know how I'm gonna help them pay. So I just ask, please look at how this is going to devastate our current disabled members, and it removes our incentive to work harder. This financial crisis PERA is facing should not be placed on our backs, the ones that gave up our career for this job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ness. The next person, Mr. Hamburg. And after that, I got Wade Laszlo, and I understand he's here now also. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record. And proceed.
Thank you, sir. My name is Adam Hamburg. I have a duty disability. I was an officer for 18-plus years, was promoted to the rank of patrol sergeant 11 months prior to my injury. Currently employed with the city of Oberlin in a civilian position and training. I was injured September 2019 as a result of a car chase that led to a foot chase. 1 month later, I had back surgery, which was not successful. Eventually, I had to have my spine fused, rod screws, titanium discs, that whole thing, my lumbar. I'm struggling to come to grips with this bill. I've worked very hard my entire career and feel because I have a duty disability, I should not be penalized because of it. I never asked for this to happen to me. Matter of fact, I didn't even know what a duty disability was prior to being injured. I hear of a lot of people wanting to get out of the job right now. I'm the complete opposite. It kills me to have to get out of the job. This is only the beginning for a lot of us with a duty disability. In fact, at my age, I'm gonna need things because of my injury to take care of myself, whether that's building an addition or moving into a place with everything on one level. It doesn't end here. It's up to me to eat that financial burden I'm gonna have in the future because of my injury. I deal with neurological issues my entire life, and sadly, life will just not become easier. Not to mention, I did everything at the time that PERA wanted me to do. I satisfied everything, doctor's visits, meetings, everything that PERA wanted me to do. These are the benefits that I agreed to at the time. That was the agreement. And now they're changing. I've yet to come to grips that I'm not able to do the job I love and am still so passionate about. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to train cops right now. That's where I'm really passionate about. But I do make a significant amount of, less amount of money. I'm subject to the windfall provision as well, as the last speaker said, which means that my estimate for Social Security is $300. I can't pay into the coordinated plan even though I work for the government. So I don't have another retirement. My retirement is on me to fund with Roth IRAs, deferred comp and whatnot. I'm not depending on Social Security because it won't be there. So I'm embarrassed to tell people that I can't do the job anymore. I feel like a failure. If this passes financially, what is the benefit for working? I know there's been changes now overnight hour, but even if you're 25 years old, you're still gonna take a huge penalty. What's the benefit of working after that if you're not gonna receive an income that's gonna sustain you to retirement? Not to mention with the officer shortage, what is the incentive of being an officer in the state, knowing that at any minute, an injury could remove you from the job? There's no financial parachute to thrive. What is the incentive? Sorry?
You can come to a conclusion.
My conclusion is, please say no to this, please remedy this. Kind regards, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Wade Laszlo, and the next person I have is Chuck Gollop. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Wade Laszlo. I'm the president of the Minnesota Correctional Officer Retirement Association, MNCORA. The Minnesota Correctional Officer Retirement Association opposes HF 1234. It started out as a police and fire PTSD bill, then morphed into a bill rewriting PERA retiree disability for all PERA members, including the correctional plan. It provides treatment for PTSD sufferers that are peace officers, firefighters, paramedics and emergency medical technicians, state patrol, but not for para-correctional officers. We are not included in this benefit. This bill seeks to change statute 353.01 subdivision 8 on disability reapplications for all para pensions, not just police and fire. If passed, this bill will change the burden of providing eligibility for a disability reapplication from PERA to the disabled member. This overturns 4 decades of administrative case law. In short, correctional plan officers will receive no benefits, but will suffer all of the harm to our disability retirement. If this body seeks to change the disability retirements of the para-correctional plan, then we demand a seat at the table. We have $1 billion in the para pension fund and no seat on the board. We need a seat on the PERA board, just like police and fire and the state COs that have a seat on the MSRS board. If this bill remained the same as SF 1959, MNCORA would have no horse in this race. Drop the changes affecting COs in HF 1234 or hold it over and give us a voice. I've had limited time to speak, so please read your MNCORA's letters in your folders, and thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Chuck Gollop, and the next person I have is Dan Schima. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Charles Gollop, officially. I am here as a private citizen, but I also am a volunteer mentor with an organization called the Minnesota Association for Injured Peace Officers. I do not represent them here, but I'm going to speak to that experience. I'm a retired police sergeant from Bloomington. I've heard a lot of the committee members say that there was plenty of notice given on this. I've been retired for 10 years. I learned about this on Wednesday. That's how all the membership started talking about it. Last night, we threw together an ad hoc emergency electronic meeting with about 200 people attending. And that's where most of us got our information, on Sunday night at 8 o'clock with 2 hours' notice. And we were so concerned about it that 200 people showed up with 2 hours' notice. The stakeholders were not addressed. We are the stakeholders as well. I don't think the general public understands the danger of this offset and this bill and what it does, excuse me, to general public safety. As far as my experience, I'm a retired police sergeant. I was a motorcycle officer. I was injured in a crash. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, traumatic brain injury, 13 broken bones, punctured lung, broken back, you name it. I went back to work because I'm an idiot. I went back to work. But what's going to happen is you're going to see people going back to work that shouldn't be working. I went back to work for a while, and because I'm an idiot, I broke my shoulder, and then I retired. I rebuilt my life 10 years ago because I did not plan on retiring. Excuse me. So I just want to say one thing. Look around this room, all of you. Look around this room. These are the people that on the 911 call did CPR on your dying babies. These are the people who pried your dying father out of a car in a car crash. These are the people who chased down the felon who pointed a gun at you. You are yanking the rug out from underneath them. They have rebuilt their lives. I know you've done the math. I know you're all have your stake in this. You're yanking the rug out from people, telling them they are unemployable, they are to be thrown away. These are people who saved your lives. You're taking that away from them without any stake, without any notice. And I hope you strongly reconsider this. This is not fair. This is an injustice. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, for your time. If you want to get through this, the audience needs to remain quiet, please. Thank you. This is Dan Schima, and the next person I have is David Deal. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record.
Dan Schima. Good morning, my name is Dan Schima. I medically retired as a police officer with the City of Apple Valley in 2022 after being diagnosed with PTSD. I do not support House File 1234 or Senate File 1959. Let me start out by saying please do not put any of the first responders who medically retired, particularly with PTSD, through any more hell than they have already endured. I would encourage the individuals who crafted and support this bill to reach out to a first responder who has medically retired. These are the only people who truly know the agonizing process involved with being approved for a para-duty disability benefit. The main topics of this bill are focused in the wrong areas. The state should be implementing and mandating that departments provide mental health resources for all their first responders. This will help first responders so they and their families have resources available to them that they can access from day one. When resources and relationships are established, you will have healthier first responders, which will lead to less PTSD claims over time. I am open to some changes, but don't penalize the first responders that have already gone through the process. For the major issues regarding this bill, I'd support the following. Revise the bill so that changes only impact members who apply for benefits on or after August 1st of 2023. Do not make changes regarding penalties or make them less severe for first responders who have returned to work in a different profession. We should be encouraging duty-disabled first responders return to work, but this bill does the opposite. I do not support the proposed changes regarding reapplication. The last thing I want to say is that when I watched the last committee meeting, I kept hearing different representatives say that they want to make sure that our first responders are being taken care of. My question is then, why haven't the first responders who have the most information regarding this process been invited to the table to help figure out what is best moving forward? For this reason and some of the items that I've mentioned, I'm opposed to this bill. I do not believe this is good for medically retired or current first responders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next person is David Dill, and he's on Zoom. And after that, I have Samantha Stewart. Mr. Dill, if you want to state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair, Commission members. My name is David Deal. I am the president of Minnesota Public Employees Association, commonly referred to as MINPE. I retired from Washington County Sheriff's Office after almost 29 years of service and am currently receiving my pension benefits through the PERA Correctional Plan. I would likely not need to be here today if the correctional plan, the healthiest and best funded of the PERA plans, had a representative on the PERA board as the police and fire plan does. MNP represents 14 units at county sheriff's offices with correctional plan members, including Hennepin, Sherburne, Blue Earth, Washington, St. Louis, Freeborn. We have 28 units with members in the police and fire plan, including licensed members at sheriff's offices such as Stearns, Carver, St. Louis, Sherburne, Freeborn, and police departments such as White Bear Lake, Hutchinson, Albert Lee, and Oak Park Heights. MNP was not notified of or provided the opportunity to give input as these bills were being formulated. We ask that the correctional plan be removed from HF 1234. You will find no mention of anything related to correctional plan members in the letters of support from the LMC or AMC. We ask that the bill be held over to next year so that all potentially affected parties can evaluate the impact of this bill and provide input to PERA and the LCPR. Doing so will provide the legislature with feedback from their constituents that is critical in making an informed decision and appropriately addressing the issues that this bill was intended to address. I also request that the meeting minutes from the Public Safety Duty Disability Stakeholders Group referenced to the AMC letter of support be made available to all PERA Correctional Plan and Police and Fire Plan members. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Samantha Stewart, and after that, I have Angie Strobel. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Stewart, chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Samantha Stewart. I am the wife of a duty-disabled police officer. I am also an attorney at Muser, Yackley & Rowan, a law firm that represents hundreds of disabled officers and first responders. I have many concerns about the PTSD provisions, but I'm choosing to focus my testimony today on three components that would be absolutely detrimental to people involved: the offsets, the reapplication language, and the proposed healthcare amendment that was introduced over the weekend. The offsets disincentivize people from working. The frequently changing offsets are proof in and of themselves that we do not have sufficient facts to enact broad sweeping changes. The earnings are still subjected to double offsets. People are trading non-taxable duty disability dollars for taxable reemployment dollars. And in some cases, people will be earning 50 cents on the dollar of their planned income. This bill is being touted as helping first responders, but one part of the bill gives life and the other takes it away. With regard to the reapplication language, why change the statute if nothing is changing? I direct your attention to page 17 of HF 1234. The language changing continuing disability to reapplication is a change. Farther down on line 20, changing the burden shifting provision is a change. Calling it anything else is disingenuous. PERA has historically shifted the way that it interprets relevant statutes to the detriment of some of its members. The language, moreover, the chosen language, may have further implications than what is being considered here. For example, if a reapplication is denied, does that member and/or his or her family lose health insurance benefits? Nobody knows. You are triggering provisions of section 299A.465 without consideration. With regard to the healthcare amendment, this takes away the person's ability to settle an incredibly expensive lawsuit. People settle these lawsuits because of the costs associated with them. Section 299A.465, subdivision 1B2, allows the court to tax its costs to the employee and the employer. Our most recent healthcare case was a one-day local hearing. That cost $12,000 to our client. Those are court fees. Those are not attorney's fees. That hearing did not require expert testimony. You add in expert testimony, travel time for the judge, and the two-day hearing, that charge easily doubles, if not triples. If you were going to take away a person's ability to settle their civil claim for health insurance, you best make sure those employers cannot challenge that provision. You are strong-arming people into incredibly expensive litigation. I have so much more to say on this bill, and I invite anyone to contact me or my firm about it. But those who say this bill is not changing anything are misleading people, or they fundamentally misunderstand the nature of this bill, neither of which are acceptable options when you are affecting thousands of families. This bill will determine if people can stay in their homes. This bill will determine if people have food on their tables. This bill will determine whether people can carry on. Before you pass this bill, understand it. Think about it before you pass this harm onto families. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I have Angie Strobel. The next person I have on the list is Russ Haynes.
Good morning.
Welcome to the
and
committee. State your name and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Angie Strobel. I appreciate the time, the 90 seconds to talk. We have finally reached a point in time in our general society where we're starting to finally speak about mental health. We are a long ways to go on that. But in regards to law enforcement, we are still in the dark ages. The very nature of law enforcement requires an attitude of never giving up, never showing weakness. It doesn't matter if you're outgunned, outmanned, or overwhelmed. You don't quit. Law enforcement officers go about that attitude with their mental health. It is so hard as a mental health or as a law enforcement officer to ask for help. We don't trust our administrations. It's not safe to admit to our partners that we're struggling. These partners depend on us for our lives. They depend on us for backup. If you say you're struggling with mental health and you might overreact, underreact, freeze, do you think that partner next to you wants to respond to a call with you? They don't. And our civilians, our societies that we're protecting every day don't deserve officers that are handling those kind of issues. But it's not safe in law enforcement to say you're struggling with mental health. It's still not safe. The idea that the 24 to 32 weeks of treatment is going to be the catch-all for a problem that has been long-term in law enforcement, the lack of treatment. What we're seeing now is an overwhelmed system because of the fact that law enforcement officers have not been getting the proper care. They have not been addressing PTSD. Departments are not protecting us from all the things that we see day to day that we take home. I have a 12-year-old son. If my work on the job is affecting my family and hurting my son, I need to look at what's best for not only my partners in law enforcement, but my own family as well. I served 20 years with the Hennepin County as a sheriff's deputy for Hennepin County. I hated the idea of leaving my profession. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I tried and I tried. I took time off. I got treatment. I went through their psych eval, knowing that if I ever got into a major incident or an officer-involved shooting, that mental health information would be available to the courts, both criminally and civilly. Jurisdictions are not going to support officers who have gone and said that they need help. They are going to find a way to get rid of them. They're going to find a way to put them in the, we're going to be put out as trash. We already have. So I beg you, look at better ways to handle mental health. Take the responsibility for the fact that we haven't been addressing it thus far, and this is the result, this overwhelming result on the system, and move forward in a better way than this bill provides. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Russ Haynes. And the next person I have is Christopher Tuma.
Good morning. I'm Russ Haynes, founder of the Invisible Wounds Project. We serve military, first responders, EMS, corrections, and dispatch related to mental health, PTSD, and suicide issues. I left public service in 2016 due to PTSD after 17 years of law enforcement, corrections, and dispatch. In 2022 alone, we provided over 1,500 individual and group therapy sessions, primarily for first responders. How many in here are veterans? How many in here know a veteran that has been diagnosed with PTSD? When a veteran is diagnosed with PTSD, there's a large system in place for treatment, therapy, and also ongoing compensation. It is most often treatable, but never considered that they will be cured. It's a diagnosis that will continue to require them to manage throughout their life, and at times, it is known to have significant flare-ups causing setbacks. They are never required to reapply or prove that they are still, quote-unquote, messed up. Having worked since 2019 with mostly first responders, I've witnessed the dramatic ups and downs of those struggling with PTSD. My question for this committee is why would we treat PTSD and our first responders so differently as compared to our veterans? Why would we force people recovering from trauma to relive it? What Director Anderson has stated is not what's written in this bill. I believe this bill is short-sighted and is only looking at the financial impacts PTSD has had on our state and local agencies. But the impacts PTSD has had on our first responders and their families has been far greater, many paying with their lives. We can't legislate this crisis away. It is going to take serious work. This crisis can't be solved by putting it on the backs of our first responders or their families, who are already overburdened. This bill further stigmatizes PTSD and will cause more harm. Those who have the greatest struggles will be less likely to reach out for help, putting them in greater danger of more mental health issues and a greater risk for suicide. Thank you for your time, and we oppose this bill.
Thank you, sir, for your testimony. Christopher Tuma, and then I have Beth Jordan on Zoom. Welcome to the committee. Again, state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning, Christopher Tuma. I'm a duty disabled retired sergeant from Minneapolis Police Department. I served 24 years with Minneapolis Police. Going through this duty disability process, work comp process, nearly broke me. I thought of, prior to ending my career, I thought of ending my own life several times. During the process of going through the work comp, I almost came to that point several more times. I felt very left, very abandoned by my department, the politicians, local, state, and federally. Having to reapply every year makes it extremely difficult to move forward with my life. I've received a letter last February and went into a tailspin for several weeks after being on duty disability for my first year. The stress of again having to tell my story and explain my trauma all over again is beyond difficult. I've been seeing therapists for over 3 years now. I have no plan to ever stop. My therapist is not a psychologist, so he is unable to sign off on this form for reapplication. This cost each year is going to be a minimum of $300 or more directly out of my pocket unless I hit my insurance deductible. Also with that, the cost. I'm going to have to find a psychologist. The timeline of that can be several months, which I may not meet PERA's deadline for approval. The way this current bill stands, the decision, if I'm not approved, it's left up to Mr. Doug Anderson to appeal to the board, which is unclear if they will follow his opinion or not. Veterans are only required to apply once for disability. Social Security disability recipients federally are only required to apply once. PTSD never goes away. Treatment can help relieve the symptoms, but the trauma is always there. Again, this makes me feel so mistreated and only adds to my anxiety and pain. I want nothing more than to try to move forward this part of my life and move forward. Having to reapply each year for 5 years only adds more roadblocks and pain. This will only continue to traumatize the 1,900 plus first responders, which I believe are mostly law enforcement, on top of the firefighters and paramedics. The first offset, which I just found out now does not apply to me because I have more than 20 years of service. I'm a single parent with a daughter who is a freshman in college. The way the current bill stands, it would have reduced my earnings, my reemployment earnings for the first $11,000 plus. I would have been taxed on those earnings when that was a tax-free benefit. This leaves me working for free and having to pay taxes on my earnings. My current part-time job since I've retired is I'm an advocate. I'm a certified peer recovery specialist within the state of Minnesota working with men in addiction recovery. This new job has been a major help to my mental health recovery and has given me meaning and purpose in life, again, being able to serve citizens. I have seen no explanation as to where the pension fund is at financially. There have been no explanations to any of these offsets, how much they would really change the status of the pension fund. And I keep hearing the word stakeholders were given a seat at the table. None of us disabled, duty disabled, or disabled retirees were given any voice in this. I found out about this bill, what was happening on the 16th of March, last Thursday, via email from Doug Anderson. This bill would affect thousands of first responders, not only mentally, but financially. I plead with you to not pass this bill, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time, sir. Beth Jordan. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record.
Beth Jordan. I'm a licensed mental health therapist, and I specialize in working with first responders and military veterans. I am a former police officer and EMT myself for over 20 years. I agree with the statements I'm hearing from the retired officers and the corrections. My read on this is that it will put additional burden on employees that are already suffering from PTSD. It also puts complete control over the process into the hands of the work comp industry, apparently, and allows them to dictate how and when and why and who and whether or not somebody gets to put in for a duty disability pension. That's a for-profit industry, and their sole purpose is to return people to work, not to get them help. The employee is not the client, the agency is. I think there's a complete ignorance on what this is actually like in real life for the employees, for what everybody is going through to get through these processes. And returning somebody to work if they've been diagnosed with chronic PTSD is a falsehood. Even returning them to a position in the agency that's not, say, patrol, is not going to work, because there are going to be too many triggers there, and it's going to put them in a position of doing basically busy work to make everybody else feel good about, oh, look how we've helped this injured officer, when in fact, no, they would do much better moving on and going somewhere else, like many of these officers have, to find work in other types of careers, but they can't do that without an income, and they can't do that without education. Most of the jobs that would be affected by this bill require only about a 2-year degree or some specialized training. It's not enough for them to transition into something that would offset these offsets. So without an understanding of the whole process, we need to move away from this idea of we'll just fix things at the end of the process once somebody's injured and everybody can be happy about it. The changes have to start both from the top, changing how administrations run departments and healthcare for these officers and the others affected by this from day one. From day one, when they are hired, they should be getting training in mental health for themselves. They should be seeking therapy and getting some education on PTSD and on other mental health problems that are inherent in these jobs. Depression, suicide, anxiety, those are all inherent in these jobs. And none of it is being addressed until after somebody is injured. We encourage people to be fit for these jobs so that they don't break a leg or sprain an ankle.
And
But
if you
we're
can
not.
come to a conclusion.
Okay, thank you. I do not agree with the language in this, and I would like to see more of us who are actually dealing with it brought to the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy Wolf, and welcome to the committee, and again, state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Wendy Wolf, and my husband, Dan, was the commander of the bomb squad for the Minneapolis Police Department when he was injured by a blast during a training exercise in 2005. He has a brain injury and has not been able to work since. And we found out in 2007 that if you are permanently totally disabled in the line of duty early in your career, your pension offsets work comp. So you fall through a loophole in the system and all you get is your pension, which is much smaller than if you had worked a full career. That's financially devastating, and we thought we had taken care of everything, but we fell through this hole. I have spent 15 years appearing in front of this body, the Work Comp Advisory Council, the League of Minnesota Cities, PERA, and others to find a solution to try to ease that burden and take care of people who can't work any job. There are many things in this bill that are controversial, but Section 19 of House File 1234 is not. It is something that, when I heard about it, I started to cry, because finally, people were able to come together and find a way to work on this problem after 15 years so that other people wouldn't fall through that hole. And I say that as somebody who has been through stress that you cannot imagine as a caregiver. And going through this process, begging every year to try to fix this is unbelievably stressful. But it's nothing compared to the stress that families go through when they find out about this hole where they aren't going to be taken care of. I hugged a caregiver whose husband was dying as she made the decision to withhold his medical care because he had no quality of life after 18 months of being catastrophically injured. After the funeral, I saw her again, and she was distraught because the only way she had money to buy a truck was because her husband died, and the system was now taking care of her. She would be here to testify today, but she died. She drank herself to death from the stress that she went through as a caregiver. Nobody should go through that. So regardless of what you do with the rest of the bill, please support Section 19, which increases pensions for those who are permanently totally disabled in the line of duty. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. And then the last person I have on my list is Megan Matson. She's on, and her husband, Eric Matson. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Megan Matson, and I have my husband, Eric Matson.
Good morning.
And I can't help but be super emotional right now after hearing all those testimonies. We agree with Wendy Wolf about the whole Section 19, but I think you guys all have a lot and that you need to re-advise and take a step back for the other law enforcement officers. January of 2021, that day, Eric signed on to PERA. It was a very emotional day for the both of us. Sitting in front of our lawyer, Ron Muser, and 4 other employees that work at that law firm, explaining step by step what was going to happen to our future, having to take breaks because we were pretty much, it felt like we were robbed of Eric's life. He had to sign on as permanent total disability because in January 6th of 2020, he was shot in the head in the line of duty. Eric served as a police officer for 11 years in, I believe, 5 different communities in our surrounding area. I am Eric's full-time caretaker 24/7. He now lives and suffers with a traumatic brain injury and side effects to a stroke. His life was taken from him at a young age, and our young family now has to suffer for more years than what we were able to enjoy before our lives were flipped upside down. PERA has been a blessing to us. We are grateful for our monthly paychecks that we rely on to pay our bills. But this leaves me no time to go get a job inside or outside of our work environment. It's impossible. I have to be his around-the-clock supervisor. Not only am I his caretaker full-time, but I also have to try and separate the roles as his wife, and I've now have to be a single mom. So we agree with the whole Section 19 being able to financially support us. But I think you guys have a lot to re-advise and think about after today and all of the testimonies that you have heard. But thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you for your time and thank you for your service.
Thank
With
you.
that, members, that's the last of our testifiers in your packet again. As I mentioned in your packet, one second, there's another list of written testimony that's been given to the committee, and that's online also. Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would PRA like to come up and respond to the testimony?
Mr. Chair, if I could just address some of the comments that were made today, I would greatly appreciate that.
Representative Herr, Chair Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to first state that I'm completely sympathetic of the stories that have been told. I have immediate family members who are officers. I lived with my aunt and my uncle while I went to college. My uncle was a cop for 30 years. I sat and watched her every single day wait for my uncle to come home every single night, even though he worked the night shift and she would work. She'd get up and go to work at 8 in the morning. She never went to bed until he came home. So this is not a topic that I take very lightly, and I want everyone to be very aware of that. And I have officer family members who sit in front of our house door and protecting us every day. And as the danger in our work increased, they were there protecting us. So I don't take this job and what I'm doing right now lightly. This is really important to me. But I am going to address some things that were said today to make sure that people understand. We did our best to include as many people as possible, and the individual people were not part of the stakeholder group. We were told they were represented in the groups that were there, and that we had labor there who were representing people who worked. We had individuals there who represented individual officers. We had a number of people there representing views and perspective. So as you all know, it is impossible to have every single person and every voice in any process. We did our best to ensure that your voices were represented, and I tell you right now, MPPOA and the cops fought dearly for every single one of you. This took 16 revisions in 3 years because they were fighting for people who are on duty disability right now. So I want people to be rest assured your viewpoints were clearly represented at this work that we were doing. The people who are saying that they're being treated differently as veterans and people on federal disability, I want to be really clear right now. I did a lot of research on disability. This plan is the most generous plan in the state of Minnesota. If you want to compare disability and who is getting it worse, ask people on federal disability. They get an offset immediately as they start to earn money, and they get way less, a huge amount less in their disability. And that our veterans, their benefits is far less great than this one. And so when we want to talk about equity, I suggest that you all talk to those on those disabilities and ask how they are doing on those plans, because they too serve this country. My grandfather was a Secret War veteran, died with no benefits and no recognition. 40,000 Hmong people died fighting for this country, and they don't get recognized as veterans. So we can talk about the inequities that exist, but there is a lot of inequity that does exist. And what I'm thinking about is I am balancing this with our current active officers who now have said nothing, but they will, if this bill does not go through today, they will say something because they will pay more. Thousands of them will pay more for the hundreds that we are trying to fix this problem for. So I want to be very clear. Let us look at federal disability. Let us look at veterans benefit, and then you tell me what is fair and what is not fair. Talking about how there might be several months before seeing a psychologist. We actually did also have provisions in the plan that says if you can't get in to see a psychologist by the time listed there, you can just get a note that says you won't get in for 3 months. We have thought about these pieces of it. I want to also be very clear that there's motives have been impugned on people saying that we had misleading people. We have not been misleading people.
If the audience cannot remain quiet, I'll get the sergeants to clear the room. Representative Herr.
Thank you. And like I said, I'm just trying to put out the right information here. And the plans that have changed, there's no changes. The reapplication process is the same. We are just codifying that until, because PERA was coming under scrutiny that they weren't doing their job, and they were. And now it is clear in statute what needs to happen. And so I just want to be really clear. There was so much more that I could say here about what has been said today, but I won't, because I understand that anything that I say is just going to look at me as anti-cop. And I want to be very clear again. There is not one provision in this bill that is mine. There are 100 things that I could have put in this bill that I did not, and all I did was work with the stakeholders to get us to this point. But if you all want to have individual conversations with me, I welcome that. We continue to work on this bill. I asked all of the stakeholders. We had the last meeting on Saturday. We still continue to talk, and I asked every single one of them to say, will you come back? If this bill doesn't work the way we want to, I need all of you to come back and fix what we need to fix. And they all said yes. So understanding that this is not done, but we do need to address it because small cities like Nisswa will go bankrupt. Officers who are currently paying to the system now will have to pay more. And so unless somebody has a real solution, they're telling me to wait another year, I'm gonna tell you right now, this has already been 3 years in the making. If I wait another year, there will be more consequences to this situation. And lastly, I just wanna say that telling me that there should be a cutoff and after a certain date, I'm telling you right now, I'm working with teachers who are fighting me on 20 years of a cutoff, saying I missed the cutoff by 6 months. Putting a cutoff in there will not solve this situation. We will continue to have people who are saying, I now need to be grandfathered in as well. I can't make everyone happy in this bill, and I'm asking you all to please work with me on figuring this out, because now just coming in and saying this bill isn't gonna work, then we need to figure out how to get 3 years of work on track again. And so I'm going to leave it with just that, Madam Chair Nelson. I know there's a lot, we still have other bills to be heard, but I encourage other people to have a conversation with me and not just impugn my motives and not make assumptions as to what people were doing when they were putting this bill together.
And we'll proceed to the amendments, and Mr. Anderson or Ms. Strange, if you want to help, go up and help with if there's questions on the amendments. I have the 5A amendment. Representative Howe, that's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I do believe that, I think we should, we protect members' pensions from being assigned. I think we should do the same with these medical benefits, so we should protect them from being assigned. So that's basically what the amendment does, is to protect those medical benefits so they continue to serve our members and to ensure that they don't get sold a bill of goods. So that's what the A5 basically does.
Representative Herr.
Thank you, Senator Howe. And I actually really like this amendment, and I would like to accept the amendment, but as I stated that there has been a large stakeholder group working on this, and this has not been fully vetted through them. And at this point, I want you to know I would personally support this, but I'm asking that either you withdraw it so that we can put it in front of the group so that they can look at it, or that I would ask a no vote of the committee.
Senator
I'll
Hall.
withdraw the amendment, and hopefully we can work together. You know, this is, I started this process a couple years ago with a passion to take care of officers, for folks that have struggled like I struggled. So that was the idea, because people were getting put out. To me, yeah, you get a duty disability, but you get no care. And to me, that's not right. We should be trying to prevent this. We should be providing care up front. We should be taking care of these folks. That's how this whole process began. And so, you know, that was the idea behind it. We've had some struggles. We tried to include just about everyone. I'm sure it's apparent that we missed quite a few folks. But we have taken everyone's input and tried to do the best we could to put a product that would do good for folks. I haven't been involved in the latest process as much as I would have liked to have been, but there's no ill will against anybody. We were trying to do the best to take care of folks, the best I thought we could. So there's a lot of things in the bill now that I'm not quite up on, and hopefully as we go through this process, we can get better at it. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hall. The next amendment, so it's the 5A amendment has been withdrawn. The next is a 6A amendment.
Mr. Chair, this is my amendment. It is.
Chair Herr.
Mr. Chair, this is my amendment, and this amendment would actually require a retainer letter, which would state what I heard from many officers on duty disability, stating that they had their benefits settled away as part of the settlement, and that was, to me, completely unacceptable. And also that they had been charged tens of thousands of dollars and then being told they were going to be charged $7,000 reapplication fee. And I thought that it was in protection of our officers who are seeking help that we have a disclosure from law firms representing them, stating that they could go through this process for free. We did post an application online, and you only need 2 doctor's notices. There is, and so it doesn't mean that people can't have representation. It just means that the law firm has to disclose that this is a free process and they can go through this process on their own. At this time, though, I will withdraw this amendment, but I want to be very clear that that is what I heard from officers who were looking for duty disability representation, but that the stakeholders group that I've passed this by are also very open to this, and they think that it is a great way to protect people, and I will also keep this on the table for future consideration with the stakeholder groups, but at this point, I will withdraw this amendment.
The 6A amendment has been withdrawn. I have a 3A amendment.
That's mine, Mr. Chair.
And Representative Nadeau. And Representative Nadeau moves his 3A amendment. And you want to explain your amendment?
Yes, sir.
Representative Nadeau.
So, members, thank you. This amendment's being handed out right now. It was late in crafting. And, you know, this has to do with Section 299A. It's the healthcare fund that is set up through the Department of Public Safety. And up until, I mean, it continuously is funded by the state government, and it allows municipalities to apply for health care coverage for disabled police and fire members. That amount has been at $1.367 million, going all the way back to 2010. And the amount, that's the amount that's funded. And the amount requested, I'm just gonna give you the 22 numbers so far, that's $10,690,618.18. So, number one, it's being underfunded. Number two, in section 1 of the bill, it's talking about what municipalities need to do now in order to try to prevent. And some of the testimony that we heard, and starting with Officer Strobel, you know, some of the testimony that we've heard today is talking about getting in front of these issues. And I bring this amendment, and I'm gonna withdraw it, because I don't wanna blow up the bill. I don't wanna cause any problems. This is a highly controversial issue. But I want to point out that this is an ever-increasing cost, not just to members who have spent their lives trying to protect us, but it's also to the cities that are responsible to pay for these healthcare costs on disabled members of this industry. I've also learned, as I was working through this, there's certain EMS providers that are ineligible for this. And I think we need to work on that too. So I only bring it up for conversation if people are interested in commenting on it. I mentioned it to Representative Herr earlier. I'm going to withdraw this amendment, but I want everyone to realize that in this bill right here, it basically covers all of these costs, whatever they are. It reimburses at 100%. So it's an unknown cost that we actually need to address going forward. And with that, Mr. Chair, I withdraw my amendment.
The 3A amendment's been withdrawn. The next amendment I have is a 4A amendment. And Representative Howe?
That's my amendment. I'm not even gonna offer it. Thank
Not
you.
going to be offered, okay. Thank you.
Thanks to staff for working on it though for me,
Yeah.
so.
With that, member discussion. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to everyone who's participated in this, and another shout out to you, Senator Howe. You have worked on this tirelessly, and have taken a lot of private and public scrutiny on this, and I have been there and seen that happen to you, and you were not deserving of that. And so I thank you for your hard work for the members of our law enforcement and our firefighter community and our first responder community. No one wishes we were here today. No one wishes that when individuals go into this profession that they have bad outcomes. My family has been involved in law enforcement and public safety for many years. I nearly witnessed the death of my father one day on duty, and that has stuck with me every single day of my life. Although I may not have firsthand experience with PTSD or physical injuries, I do have that unpleasant memory of January 27th, 1991, where I got to watch my father outside of an apartment window. Ambulances roll up. As an unarmed officer going in with a shotgun in his stomach because someone flinched. My father had great negotiating skills. He is alive. I had a father for the rest of my life, and he saw 5 grandchildren. This commission has been developed for the purpose of vetting out very difficult and complicated issues. It consists of House members, Senate members, Republicans, and Democrats, trying to work on behalf of all of our public employees in the state of Minnesota. And we know that these situations arise. We know there's more work to be done. We haven't even gotten the fiscal note on what some of the costs on this are going to be. There are more stops along the way. But this commission knows it also needs to be moving this along to be able to help the process come to a successful conclusion. And I'm sorry if you didn't learn about this until maybe Thursday in some cases, or even yesterday evening. But rest assured that your elected officials who sit around this table want the best outcome for everybody involved. This is not a look at the shiny object over here and try to pass a bill on the other side. We are wanting to be able to do the right thing by everyone. And as the chair said, and as others have said, this bill has more stops and more work to be done. And we've got over 2 months till the end of this legislative session. I want to just close and let you know today would have also been my father's 86th birthday. This is a tough day for me because I could have lost him. He has since passed away. But nonetheless, I sit here today being able to take care of the people he worked as a police chief to try to take care of. The people who were in his ranks. We have great respect in our family for law enforcement. My brother's a fire chief in Tampa. Those waters run deep. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Driscoll. Representative Wolgamott.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Frentz, Representative Herr, thank you for your hard work on this legislation. One of my absolute top priorities as the representative from District 14B is to have the backs of the first responders in my district who put themselves at risk every day. They put their mental health and well-being on the line. They put their physical health and well-being on the line. And it's important that through this process that we make sure we have an outcome that supports them. And that's why I want to thank you for your hard work to put this legislation together in a way that has earned the support of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police, the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, the Minnesota Peace and Police Officers Association, and the Minnesota Fire Association. Those are extremely, extremely important entities that represent the best interests of what we need to have in the outcome of this legislation. I have heard concerns that we've heard today. I have heard from folks back in my district, and so as their voice on this commission, even though these things have already been addressed, just for clarity's sake, I want to make sure that they get clear answers to their concerns. One of the things I've heard concerns about is needing to reapply every year. But as has been mentioned, there are no changes to the reapplication process. But Madam Chair, Senator Frentz, for the sake of my constituents, if you could comment further on that to give them the peace of mind that there are going to be no changes to the reapplication process.
Senator Frentz, Representative or Chair Herr.
Thank you, Chair Nelson and Representative Wolgamott for that question. You are correct in that the process has always been the same. It is every year reapplication for the first 5 years, and every year, at every 3 years after that. That has always been PERA's process, and now we are just codifying that into statute. And there was a couple of exceptions during COVID because we understood there were a lot of exceptions made because of the circumstances we were all operating in. So people might not remember, they might feel like they didn't have to apply, but those were exceptions being made for those particular years. We are just codifying the process into law now.
Representative Wolgamott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other concern that I've heard from folks in my district, if you could address that, is limiting income after disability retirement.
I'm sorry, Representative Wolgamott, can you repeat the question real quick?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Another concern that I've heard is regarding limiting income after disability retirement. If you could speak to that concern.
Chair Herr.
Thank you, Chair Nelson, Representative Wolgamott. I'm going to actually, because this is a more detailed response, I'm going to defer to Mr. Anderson to answer that question.
Thank you.
You're pointing me fingers. Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Chair, Representative Wolgamott, the reference to limiting income. So this may be referred to as offset number 2 in the bill. And what it does is that if the disability benefit plus reemployment earnings exceeds the earnings of someone in a comparable position that the member left, then there's a dollar for dollar offset of the disability benefit. So the disability benefit is reduced. So a member is able to go and with reemployment earnings and the disability benefit earn up to what someone in a position is currently making, and then an offset applies after that.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Chair Herr.
And just a quick point to point out is that this change actually just makes this particular plan similar to that that the state patrols. And so it brings that in line. And I also want to point out that PERA has additional responsibility that goes above what we do here at the state. They have federal requirements. And so part of their plan and what they have all decided was that equity needed to be a part of this. And so the way the plan is set up is that now officers on duty disability will not exceed the pay of an active duty officer. So that some of the changes are made for those particular reasons is for equity purposes.
Representative Wolgamott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One last question to the bill authors. First of all, thank you for those responses. I know you've already mentioned this, but I want to make clear that, you know, as this bill goes forward, right, in the House, I believe it's currently in the Ways and Means Committee. In the Senate, I believe it's currently in the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. As this bill goes forward, I know that the concerns that you're hearing today, the concerns of the emails that we're getting, I know that, and you've already mentioned this, Chair Hurd, that we have your commitment that you will meet with folks be willing to have the conversation with the first responders who, in my district, who do have concerns and make sure that their voices are being heard as this bill continues to move its way through the legislative process. We have that commitment, right? Senator Frentz and Representative Herr?
Yeah, thank you,
Senator
Representative
Frentz.
Wolgamott. And, to that point, we're cheering for everybody in public safety. We're cheering for those active members, we're cheering for those retired members, and we're cheering for those members that are on duty disability, which is why I call attention to the treatment provisions of the bill as something, as the author of the original PTSD presumption amendment, very important to me. Of course, you have our promise to keep working on it, and of course, the members and the family that are in this room, of course, we're gonna keep working on it. One last observation is that when we have MPPOA and MPFF, they often speak for firefighters and cops to us at the Capitol. That's a good thing, that's a voice. To the extent that those members out on duty disability have wanted additional opportunities with their family members to be heard, you can have that. And I look forward to that, Representative Wolgamott. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I see Chair Hurd, we're shaking our head. Any further questions? Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My comments were similar to Rep. Wolgamott's. I also received a lot of communication from people in my district that I support, all of our public safety, all of our first responders. They didn't all reply, but I will say I heard from many of them, and I support them all. And I particularly appreciate those who came today and further talked about some of those concerns. And I want to just, and I respect the fact that this bill is a work in progress. And you're working extremely hard to make sure all voices are at the table. Indeed, they need to be. I wanted to just mention two things that I heard in the testimony today that I don't know were addressed by our amendment adopted today. And I want to make sure that they are not lost as this bill moves forward. And one of those has to do with the offset being based on the base wage. And I will speak further with my constituent to understand that exact piece, but it sounds like that might be a gap as we are looking at an offset and making it fair and just. So looking at the fact that it's just based on the base wage is one thing that I will want to know more about. And there's another piece that was mentioned today in testimony as well that I am thinking about that I will want to know more about. And as we look at a fair and equitable way to move forward, it also appears that there's a difference in a taxable event and a non-taxable event. And we would be amiss if we thought that treating a taxable event the same as a non-taxable event is fair. So I just want to get those pieces in the discussion, and I look forward to this bill as it moves further through the process. That's what we do in the legislature. Committees are refining processes, and as we continue to refine this, I hope those two pieces will be kept in the conversation. Thank you.
Chair Hurd.
Chair Nelson and Senator Nelson, we actually have looked at those particular pieces of it. There have been adjustments made to the first offset because of what we had heard, and that the duty disability, I think starting from which year, will be completely non-taxable, not taxed. Okay.
Ms. Stringy.
Mr. Chair, a couple brief things. First, about the first offset, it is based on the average salary at the time that the member went out on disability. That's what we've used to calculate the disability. The second offset, the threshold, is not on that base salary, it is what a current active member is making in that position. The intent of that is to adjust for contract negotiations, inflation, all of those things built into an active member's benefit or salary is. Secondly, beginning in 2027, there was the Secure Act 2.0 made changes to how a disability benefit is taxed once it's in retirement. Currently, a disability benefit that transitions to a retirement benefit loses its non-taxability. However, beginning in 2027, these benefits will retain its non-taxability. So these members that are receiving disability benefits now that are non-taxable will retain that throughout the remainder of their life.
Thank you.
Further questions? If not, Chair Her renews her motion that House File 1234 be re-referred, what's that? As amended, thank you. Be re-referred to Ways and Means. Yeah, that's what all in favor of the amendment?
Sorry.
Senator Pappas.
Sorry, and the Senate doesn't have Ways and Means. So what is that? Is that going to
We'd
be a
be fine.
referral?
Finance.
The corresponding commission, or the corresponding committees in both the House and the Senate. In the House, it's Ways and Means. I believe it's the Finance. and the
Finance,
Senate.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Senator Pappas. Anyway, all in favor of the motion, Senator Her's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. The bill's on its way. Thank you, everybody, and thank you to the testifiers who showed up.
Keep going over there, Chair.
No, I think I have to keep going, so you have to leave, can leave when I questions.
About the taxation.
Okay, stay there.
Between tax and non-tax. That was a kind of slight that did not answer my question. For everyone, it's not just retroactive, it's starting in 2027. For everyone. So we want to make sure that everyone's fair. Yeah, thank you.
Are we continuing? We don't have caucus.
We do still have other bills to be heard today, so for those who are leaving, if you could leave, please leave quietly so that we can continue on our bills. The next item of business to hear is House File 2713, Senate File 2371, from Representative Nelson and Vice Chair Frentz. I will move the bill before this commission, and we will hear from our bill authors and testifiers, but before that, I will let nonpartisan staff, Executive Director Susan Linczewski, to explain this bill in front of us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill increases the COLA for basic members of the PERA General Plan and provides for annual direct state aid payments of $6 million. As you may recall, basic members do not receive Social Security benefits based on the salary and service covered by the pension plan. Under current law, the COLA for all members of the PERA General Plan is equal to 50% of the Social Security COLA, but not less than 1% or greater than 1.5%. Section 2 of the bill increases that to a minimum of 1.5%, but if the Social Security COLA is greater than 1.5%, then the COLA is equal to the Social Security COLA, but not to exceed 3.5%. So there's a 1.5% minimum, a 3.5% cap. This would take effect on January 1, 2024. Section 1 provides the $6 million annual direct state aid.
Thank you, Ms. Linczewski. And so I will turn it over to Representative Nelson and Vice Chair Frentz for any introductory remarks. And my apologies, I'm going to try to push us through because these bills are all getting laid over. So please provide your remarks, and we'll have your testifier go right after you.
And thank you, Madam Chair, and I just, in the matter of time, we'll turn it right over to the testifier.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission. My name is Dave Johnson, and I represent MMRA. I'd like to thank the bill authors for carrying this bill, Ms. Lancheski, for her help in getting this bill drafted, and Doug Anderson at PERA for providing an estimate. What this bill attempts to do is to mitigate the significant erosion in purchasing power that PERA General Basic Plan members have seen in their retirement benefits over the last few years, based on information that was in the 2020 LCPR COLA study. These basic plan members were not eligible to participate in Social Security for their service. They have not received the higher Social Security COLAs that coordinated members have received. They made higher employee contributions for a benefit that was to include or to account for the lack of Social Security eligibility. They've seen significant erosion in their pensions over the last decade. The LCPR's 2020 COLA study found that at current COLA levels, all public employees will expect erosion in the purchasing power of their pension benefit over the next 20 years. For basic plan members, that erosion is significantly greater. That study found that when it came to inflation protection, coordinated members have an advantage over basic members because Social Security benefits are adjusted for inflation by an annual COLA. The COLA study compared a coordinated member with a basic plan member over a period of 30 years, both starting with a $3,400 a month monthly benefit, with coordinated members receiving $1,900 from the pension and $1,500 from Social Security, and basic members receiving $3,400 from the pension plan, and a 1% post-retirement benefit from the pension plan. Assuming 2.5% rate of inflation and a 2.5% COLA on the coordinated member's Social Security benefit, the study found that after 20 years, the coordinated members' combined benefit would exceed the basic plan members' monthly benefit by $650 or $630, and after 30 years, that increased to $1,125. Basic plan members' benefits are eroding far faster than a coordinated member's benefit. That was also found in the COLA study. At 30 years, the purchasing power is 64% of the initial benefit, as compared to a pension benefit with Social Security at 86% for a coordinated member. So in short, Social Security provides a significant mitigating effect to the loss of purchasing power, especially in later years, and that's what was discussed at length in the COLA study. MMRA believes that the study actually understates the level of erosion currently occurring because of inflation, as well as the speed at which that erosion is occurring relative to PERA. In 2021, the Social Security COLA was 5.9% was 5.9%. In 2022, it was 8.7%. In contrast, PERA, the PERA General COLA increases, which is what basic plan members have, has been at 1% for over a decade, except for the last years when it's been at 1.5%. So I think that, kind of the point we'd like to make is for these members in PERA General, they were folks that some were in the former Minneapolis Employees Retirement Fund, MRF. They were non-professional workers in the school district. They were folks in public works and others, and their monthly or their annual pension benefit, which is Social Security and their benefits, about $38,000 or so. And they've seen significant erosion, and they haven't had the benefit of the Social Security COLA. I would just then note that over the last few years, we've supported a PERA General COLA increase, but we know that that's a very expensive benefit to provide without negatively impacting the plan. Even a 0.25% or a 0.5% increase is in the hundreds of millions. What we've really tried to do or propose here is something that would affect about 8,000 basic plan members who have seen their pension erode significantly, and folks that the COLA study has identified as needing some assistance to help mitigate the effects. And it does it by trying to provide some additional benefit up to, based on the COLA that is provided for Social Security with a cap of 3.5%. and a floor of 1.5%, as Ms. Linchewski said. So that's basically my testimony, Madam Chair. I know you have a lot to get through. I'd be happy to answer questions, but Brian Lockismo from MMRA has some brief testimony as well, if that's okay.
Yes, Mr. Locksmore, if you're here, if you want to testify, please identify yourself for the record and begin your testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair, commission members. My name is Brian Lockismo. I'm a retired City of Minneapolis employee in the PERA Basic Plan. And I'm currently the Vice President of Minnesota Municipal Retirement Association. And I'm here supporting this bill. I think it's a much needed change in how things have been operating recently. Most of these members are basic members that have been retired for 20 to 30 years. Their average age is 83 years old. And Mr. Johnson had mentioned the majority of these people were truck drivers and clerks and technicians and secretarial support and administrative staff and just general working positions, and their pensions aren't that great. And the erosion that they've seen has been significant, as David mentioned, over the years. And a small, that when they're only getting 60 or 70% of what they thought their pension was going to be due to the lack of purchasing power, it really puts them in a bind. David mentioned a lot of the facts regarding to that. Consequently, a lot of these people are pretty much struggling to get by these days without Social Security and limited pension and no protection for inflation. We hear this all the time clearly at our annual meetings where they come and attend and ask what's going on, but we're not keeping up at all, and it's getting tough. So I think between Mr. Johnson and myself, I think we've covered the issues, and we strongly support a change in the COLA for these basic members.
Thank you for your testimony. I will move to member questions. Are there any questions, members, for our testifiers and our authors? Representative Nadeau.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, is the benefit revenue from this fund, is that taxable also in Minnesota? Do these members pay tax on this income?
Yes.
Thank you. I was just curious.
Thank you. Any further questions from members? If not, seeing no further discussion, I will let our authors have their final comments, and then we will lay the House file over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members. Cost of living increases are fundamental to achieving the goals of the COLA study, which is to not allow the purchasing power of our retirees to erode, and I think this bill addresses that for those members included. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Frentz.
And Madam Chair, like I said, these are people that do not get Social Security because they were in a plan that most of these plans predated Social Security. And so, even though Social Security was in the news, got a large COLA increase this year, these people don't benefit from that because they are not able to collect Social Security.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. So I will move to lay House File 2713, Senate File 2371 over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bill. We can go with it. Next up, we have a Wolgamott Seeberger bill, as House File 1923, Senate File 2140. And if you can make your way to the testifiers table, I will move the bill before this commission. And before we hear the bill, we will have Ms. Linchewski just briefly explain what the bill is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is a special law, again, for two people that authorizes the transfer of several months of service dating back to 2005 from the PERA General Plan to the PERA Police and Fire Plan. This is for two employees of the Metropolitan Airports Commission. To receive the service credit transfer, the employees must contribute the difference in the employee contributions that were made to the general plan and the employee contributions that would have been made to the police and fire plan plus interest from 2005. If the employee makes the payment, the employer must contribute the actuarial value of the additional pension benefit due to the additional service minus the employee contribution payment. Once the employee and employer payments are received by PERA, PERA will transfer assets from one plan to the other, and the service will be credited.
Thank you, Ms. Linchewski. Representative Wolgamott and Senator Seeberger, any introductory remarks?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to present to you House File 1923. Ms. Lancheski just gave a great overview of the bill. I would just add some more context to this. It was drafted by our Pension Commission staff to address a situation where the employer, the Metropolitan Airports Commission, failed to notify PERA of employment changes for 2 individuals who later became eligible for the police and fire retirement plan. Just some background on these situations these employees found themselves in. The first employee reported that they found out about the error after working for Mac Police Department for about 13 or 14 years. They contacted PERA, they said they had the records on what happened, but they were unable to make the correction to the credits given the time limitation in statute. The second employee, Madam Chair, is no longer employed by the Mac Police Department and started to work to remedy the situation with Mac in approximately 2015. They originally spoke to a PERA employee who said they could see that Mac turned in the paperwork for police officer promotion from CSO 1 year after the actual promotion date. There was some agreement between Mac and PERA to backdate the mistake, but since 10 years had passed, it would need a legislative correction. And there were 3 officers that were promoted on the same day. Only one had their PERA paperwork turned in successfully and correctly in a timely manner. That's the bill, and that's the stories of why we are bringing this before you today.
Senator Seeberger, any comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I would also note that in your packets, there is a letter of support for this bill from the MPPOA.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott and Senator Seeberger. And I will ask if there's anybody here in the public that would like to testify on this bill. Seeing that there's none, I will.
I'm present here to testify and take any questions.
Please make your way to the testifiers table and identify yourself for the record.
Good morning. My name is Mark Schneider, SCHNEIDER, General Counsel for Law Enforcement Labor Services. I've been involved in handling matters for the 2 members involved in this bill, and I was just asked to appear today in the event there are any questions from the committee. Madam Chair, just very briefly, and I think both Senator and Representative outlined the circumstances fully. Back in May of 2005, 2 Airport Police Commission officers were promoted from CSOs, community service officers, to licensed peace officers. There was a glitch in the paperwork, and the time period we're talking from is approximately May 2nd of 2005 to October 28th of 2005. Both officers understand they will have to contribute any unpaid credits or amounts prior to triggering the statute and are fully aware of the circumstances, but we are in support of both the House file and Senate file bills in this matter and ask that they pass.
Thank you. And member questions, Representative Cha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What's the amount of the service credit? How much are we talking about here?
It's for a 6-month period. I don't have the dollar amount here, but as I indicated before, the bill is triggered. The members would have to contribute their service credit amount, and then the onus would turn on PERA to make their contribution as well. There were contributions made to the employee retirement, the general employee retirement plan, so we're just talking about the difference from service credits for that 6-month period to the police and fire retirement plan.
Representative Cha, any follow-up? Thank you. Any further questions? Representative Wolgamott and Senator Seeberger, any final comments?
Thank you for the opportunity to present House File 1923, and I want to ask for your support for this and its inclusion in our omnibus bill.
Thank you, Representative Wolgamott, and I will move to lay House File 1923, Senate File 2140 for possible inclusion in an omnibus bill. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda item is House File 1669, Representative Anderson. And I will move the bill before this commission, and I understand that there is a 3A author's amendment that has been drafted, and I will move that amendment. Representative Anderson, would you or a representative from PERA like to explain the 3A author's amendment?
I can, Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Originally, the bill was drafted, and it was pretty broad in scope in the amendment, the A3 amendment that narrows it down so it would impact only the township officials here in Minnesota. Madam Chair.
Okay, any discussions to the 3A amendment? With that. Okay. With no further discussion on the author's 3A amendment, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. Back to the bill as amended. Before we hear the bill from our author and testifiers, I will ask Ms. Linczewski to give us a brief description of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill permits appointed local government officials to participate in the PERA Defined Contribution Plan. Current law permits only local government officials who have been elected to participate in the plan. Once a government official goes from elected to appointed, they are actually kicked out of the plan and can no longer participate. This will change the law so that these appointed local government officials can continue on in the plan. The last section of the bill is a session law that permits officials whose participation ended because they became appointed officials after 2009 to elect to rejoin the DC plan by providing notice to their governmental employer. If the official elects to rejoin the plan, the employer is required to contribute the missed contributions for the period, and the employee may contribute the missed contributions. Just to note that these are very, very small benefits. The most they can contribute on a monthly basis is $21. That's the most they can contribute. So when the employer makes this makeup payment, is likely to be hundreds of dollars, not much more than that.
Representative Anderson, do you have any additional introductory remarks to the bill?
No, Madam Chair, again, that was described very well. Again, this was brought to me by some folks out of my rural area of Minnesota, and township officials, I think, serve because they want to serve. And this would help townships as populations decrease, that sometimes folks don't want to run for election, so they're appointed. And this would help them with really a small benefit I hope that we could give them.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And it looks like we have a testifier here. I see Mr. Harris up there, but I have a Jeff Kruger down as a testifier.
Madam Chair, actually, it's Jeff could not testify virtually. We have a substitute for him who can speak to the bill online.
Thank you. Well, go ahead to the online testifier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Nancy Barsness, and for the last year, I've been serving as Deputy Clerk of New Prairie Township in Polk County. Before that, I served 43 years as elected New Prairie Clerk, and during that time, I contributed to PERA's DCP plan. I'm 78 years old, so about 5 years ago, we started looking for someone in the township who was willing to do my job. They had to be a resident because clerk is an elected position. We could not find anyone. Responsibilities for clerk have dramatically increased over the years, and not just anybody can do the job. So last year, New Prairie residents voted to adopt the option, and they voted by ballot, to make the clerk and the treasurer's position an appointed one. We checked with PERA and got conflicting advice as to whether or not we, as appointed then officials, were eligible for DCP enrollment. PERA finally concluded that we are not, neither clerk nor treasurer. Despite not being able to offer any retirement benefits, we did find a wonderful clerk that happened to live a half a mile outside of our township. But unfortunately, now as an appointed official, she does not have the DCP benefit. My elected term was up last year, and as deputy clerk, I'm also no longer for DCP, so I had to withdraw my DCP funds. The New Prairie treasurer's term is up this year, and next month, the New Prairie supervisors will most likely be appointing her as treasurer, and she too has been participating in DCP for nearly 40 years, and she will lose her eligibility. So in conclusion, I want to thank Representative Paul Anderson for introducing this bill. New Prairie isn't unique in this, but it's only because we made these positions appointed that we're in this position. It's getting harder and harder for any township to find people who want to be clerk, treasurer, or supervisor. losing our DCP eligibility, again, because it's appointed, makes these officers ineligible, but it doesn't cost the township anything, because if you don't enroll in DCP, the township matches 0.62 for Social Security then. But if you're in DCP, it's 5%. So actually it saves the township money to have officers enrolled in DCP. Townships need to be able to offer DCP retirement benefits to recruit clerks, treasurers, and their deputies. And I didn't hear that in the summary of the bill. So for that, again, thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. And any member questions for Representative Anderson? Representative O'Driscoll, and then we'll go to Representative Nelson.
Which Representative O'Driscoll?
You had your hand up first, Representative O'Driscoll.
That Representative
No,
O'Driscoll?
no, I saw
this
you,
one?
I saw
Oh,
your
okay.
hand, and then I saw Representative Nelson. I know the difference.
There's a joke out there somewhere, right, to be had. I just thought I'd try to lighten the mood a little bit since we did have some pretty heavy stuff with our agenda today. Madam Chair and members, to the point, for some history on this, it is an option to go either into Social Security or into the DC plan. You are not exempt from the Medicare contribution, so that still stays on those wages. And so the employing entity still pays those. The other thing that we did a few years ago was we allowed persons who were already age 59 and a half to be able to put those monies in January and take them out, if you will, in February, because they were of retirement age. And that was very well received by primarily, again, township officials, because you do have a lot of folks who have time on their hands, oftentimes retirees or extra time, who want to serve in those roles. And so we made it permissible for them to be able to make withdrawals from those funds as well, because they met the eligibility requirements under the IRS regulations. And many of them were already retired, drawing Social Security, and this is a way for them to be able to continue to supplement their income in that situation. Representative Anderson, thank you for bringing this bill forward. I'm sure there's a few other entities out there that will be before us at some point in the future that we just haven't identified, but we definitely have been working with the townships in the role I've been speaking of. And again, thank you, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Representative O'Driscoll, for the comments. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I guess it's a question maybe for Ms. Linczewski, but is this an unintended consequence of legislation we passed a few years back allowing townships, counties to combine positions and make them appointed as opposed to elected? Is this kind of an unintended consequence of that, having done that in the past? And it might more of these pop up.
Ms. Linczewski.
Madam Chair and Representative Nelson, I don't know whether this is one of those unintended consequences, but the bill then I would think will fix that problem. So if they're appointed, they'll be able to stay in the plan, but I don't know the history. Sorry.
Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Representative Anderson, again, thank you for bringing the bill forward. This is probably something that we missed back when we did that bill in the past, and it was for convenience for the same reason they're not able to find people to fill these positions, especially in the outstate. And so this is a good bill.
Thank you, Representative Nelson. Any closing comments? Mr. Harris.
Madam Chair, if you will, just for a moment, I just wanted to also acknowledge Representative Wolgamott and Senator Seeberger for also introducing similar legislation to Representative Anderson's, and it's a nice bipartisan bill, so thank you.
Thank you. Any closing comments, Representative Anderson?
I think there's a phone a friend here.
Go ahead, Ms. Stringy.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Amy String, policy coordinator for the Public Employee Retirement Association. I just wanted to quickly say our position here, we appreciate working with Representative Anderson, and we can definitely have this fixed this year. And then our intent is to look at the defined contribution plan through the interim and the current eligibility for that, and then probably bring something before our board and have a more substantial look at the DCP plan.
Thank you. Any further questions for the testifiers or our chief author? Representative Anderson, do you have any closing comments?
Well, thanks, Madam Chair, and this is my first time before your commission, and if the attendance this morning is any indication, I'm impressed by the work you do here, and you take on some pretty important topics, so thank you for doing that. No, just a closing comment, I think the need is there. It's not a big ask in terms of money or number of people, but it's something we do need to correct. So thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill.
Thank you for bringing the bill forward, and I will move to lay House File 1669 as amended over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bill. Thank you, Representative Anderson. And next on our agenda is Senator Howe's bill. But Senator Howe, I understand that you may not want to offer this at the current time?
Correct, Madam Chair. I would prefer if we can maybe bring it up on Wednesday and have a discussion there, if I can get it in the shape I'd like it to have it.
Thank you, Senator Howe. I will work with staff, and that day, I think we were planning to go over our omnibus bill. So hopefully we'll have the ability to put that into it. Representative O'Driscoll.
Just procedure, did you want to move the bill and lay it on the table, so if he has a DE, he can bring it back on Wednesday?
Sure, we can do that. Senator Howe, do you want to proceed with that?
Sure, that would be perfect. I don't think I need to go to the testifiers table. Actually, I just want to make sure that the provisions that we've made in PRA and in MSRS a couple years ago, that we actually make that for all public employee pensions, so they have the right to buy their military service back in the same time frame. So just trying to protect the veterans that served and have the same ability throughout each one and make the time frame the same. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Howe. So the motion before us is that we will lay this bill on the table for further consideration at our Wednesday meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion prevails, and we will put House File 2008 on the table. I don't think that's the right language, but I'm trying, guys. And we will take it up for consideration on Wednesday's meeting. Our last bill before us is a bill for St. Paul Teachers Retirement Fund Association, and this is a Senator Rasmussen bill. Senator Rasmussen, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about the bill, or would you like Ms. Linczewski to explain the bill for us?
I can dive in if there's any questions. Ms. Linczewski can help answer.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Senator Rasmussen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a constituent named Bonnie Strobe who worked for 25 years at St. Paul Central, finishing her education career in Greater Minnesota. She retired in 2003 with a pension from St. Paul Teachers. She had been in a same-sex relationship for 30 years, but because same-sex marriage wasn't legal in 2003, she was unable to list her partner for survivor benefits. Fast forward 10 years to 2013, same-sex marriage became legal in the state of Minnesota, and my constituent and her partner of 40 years got married. She was still unable to add her now wife as a survivor because they weren't married at the time when she retired. The bill before the Pension Commission would allow Bonnie and others in her situation to add their spouse as a survivor on their pension benefit. Bonnie and her now wife have been together for 50 years at this point this year, and so I think it's time for us to get this fixed, and she was humbled to have her case brought before the Pension Commission today and wanted me to pass along that feedback, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Senator Rasmussen. And do we have anybody here from the public who would like to testify on this bill? If not, and I will ask Mr. Tensick to maybe just be available for questions in the language should that come up. So if you want to go up to the testifier's table to save us a little bit of time. And member questions. Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm hoping that the folks from St. Paul Teachers can help with this, because I see that this is probably going to be a question that we want to maybe vet out a little bit here on the commission, and it may take more time than today. Given the situation that Senator Rasmussen has brought forward, there could have already been an annuitization of those benefits. So my question is, are we going back and opening up a current annuitant's benefits to put a joint survivor on there? Or what benefits are we looking at putting survivor benefits on, or to list as a beneficiary?
Senator Rasmussen.
So I believe for my constituent who's under, I believe, a basic plan, there would be no change in the actual payment. For those who are on a coordinated plan, there would be a recoupment of overpayments to eligible individuals over time. And I believe that that's how other plans have addressed this as well.
Representative O'Driscoll.
That answers my questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any further questions for our chief author or the testifier? Seeing that there are no further questions, Senator Rasmussen, any closing remarks?
No, thank you very much for hearing this bill today, and hope it's considered for omnibus.
Thank you. I will renew my motion to lay the draft language over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bill. And with that, that concludes our business for today, members. Our next hearing will be Wednesday, March 22nd, beginning at 6 p.m. We will be considering the LCPR's policy omnibus bill and potentially Senator Howe's bill as well. Seeing no further business in front of this committee, this meeting is adjourned.